here's what I wanted to do. Being we finished our first week, I wanted to start getting into scan tools and scope stuff so I can help you guys help yourselves. So when we get into shop, I said that before, I don't want you to danner me to death, and I want to give you some direction and how to do that. And I thought maybe we could tie it, I don't know how well this is going to work, but maybe we could tie it into a live problem. This car has a problem. It runs like crap. It's a green Honda is all I know about it right now. Came from Arlington Auto, one of the garages I do work for, and it's been sitting here for 2.5 months. I had no idea the car was even here. History of the vehicle is it had an engine swap, and once the engine was swapped, it didn't run right at all, and I could barely pull it into the classroom, and it stunk real bad. So the other downside is the exhaust leaks, and we're probably all going to die if we run the car in here for any long period of time. If we need to run the car, we'll pull the fan over and put the fan in the door. And I have the exhaust hoses hooked up, but with an exhaust leak in a vehicle that is running like this one is dangerous for sure. So just starting with scan tool, let's see if we can tie this together. I'm not sure how well it will go. I know for sure the case study will be good. Whether or not I can show you everything I want to get you prepped for the shop next week is up for debate, but this will help. That much I can promise. Okay? Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
All right. Rather than start week 2 switch inputs, which is where we're going, I thought we could do this first and get prepped for the shop for next week. We're missing 2 days because of the Easter break. Friday of last week, Monday of this, so we're kind of a little bit off. All right, how many of us have used a scan tool? So just about everyone. So some of this, we can move a little faster maybe. How many of you guys have used the Veris? Okay, and then most of the rest of you with the Solus Pro was your scan tool? Okay, the platforms are really the same. When you connect to the car, you would identify the vehicle, and then it tells you what chip to use and what chip or what key. That's these guys, these personality keys. These configure the data link connector to communicate properly with the vehicle you're connected to. This is an older version, by the way. The newer version does not need the keys anymore. It's a box that you plug in, and it does the determination for you, and it's wireless. And I chose to go the wired version because then I don't have to plug in electrical power to the tool, and I won't lose power. I'm not operating off the battery of the tool. I'm operating off the car when I'm wired, so that's why I chose this one. We only have one of the wireless Veris Pros is what it's called. It's just got a bigger hard drive. It's got a better processor and some other perks to it. So from this screen, if you made a mistake and closed it out, and I still have the tab open down here at the bottom. It says Diagnostic Suite. But if you closed it out and weren't sure, it would be this one right here. If you double click this Shop Stream Diagnostic Suite, then it pulls up the Veris program, and it's down here. Okay? My preference with this tool is to show the desktop, and so that would be that icon right there. And the reason I like to do that is it allows me to minimize and work with the desktop, or maybe use Internet Explorer or whatever and get on the internet. This is a laptop, a touchscreen laptop, the Veris is. I don't want to go too much into that though. A few things with this tool that we need to understand. This is more than a scan tool. This is a scan tool, it is a scope, it is a multimeter, it is a, what else? It's a computer, thank you. It's a touch screen. XP is the operating system computer. And it was never designed to be a really fast computer that you're going to surf the web and watch videos and all. That's not what the tool was designed for. The tool is designed to be an all-in-one that we can go on the internet and get some help for the car that we're working on. Maybe go on Mitchell or go on ShopKey or whatever you purchased. We have direct links to that. That would be under our repair information. That will take me directly to Mitchell, which we have at the school, because our Mitchell program is protected around our IP address. And so as long as I'm here on the school's wireless account, I can go right onto Mitchell, right from a tab right in front of me without leaving the car and going over there and printing stuff out. So that's pretty cool too.
So those things do have Wi-Fi capability or not?
I am right now connected to Wi-Fi.
Cool. Sweet.
My RTI net 1, right? Okay. All right, so scanner is where we're going. We did a little bit of this already with the Ford when we identified vehicles and 2 modes of communication. And so we'll just attack this car a little bit, see what we find, and then see where this is going to take us. So scan tool, and I don't know what I'm working on. All I know is this is a green Honda. Honda, and green is not an option. If I select auto ID, I don't believe it will work with this car. Let's do it. We didn't do that on the Ford. I'm pretty sure this isn't going to work, but I could be wrong. I'm wrong a lot. If one thing I learned about this field is it'll humble you quick. All right, so K20 is the key. I just put in the adapter, and I'm pretty sure it's going to say auto ID is not available on this vehicle. Chrysler is the only one that I've seen that allows me to auto identify. I haven't run into any other model that does it other than Chrysler. And Chrysler's done that since the dawn of time. So yeah, I don't know why they're giving us that option in here, but so 10th VIN is what I need. Is a Y. A Y is a 99, I believe, 2000. 4th, what is this thing in the back, Dan? Is this a Accord? LX? Does it matter?
Accord LX.
C, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, C is the 4th VIN. When in doubt of the vehicle, go by this stuff here, guys, okay? 4th VIN, it is an Accord. And then engine is my 6th on this one. I'm surprised. I thought it was the 8th on all of them. Apparently not. 6th VIN is my engine. And that is a 6. So it's this guy, right?
Well, it's supposed to be. It's got a motor in it.
That is correct. And that could be a conflict. Before we go any further, if this had the wrong engine put in it, look, there's a...
You know, yeah, because it has Vtec right on the...
There's 3 different 2.3 liters.
Oh. That's some good. There's some good preliminary research, wouldn't you say? This thing had an engine put in it. We have 3 different 2.3s.
It's supposed to be ultra low.
It should be this one.
Can we go off the block?
We probably can, but I wouldn't know how to do that offhand without doing some research and getting a block number and finding out exactly what that is. We may have to go there. But let's pause there for a second. Let's say, for example, that it had this engine put in it. Would you identify this vehicle with that engine, or would you identify it with the VIN tag engine?
That's a good question. Depends on if they replace the computer as well.
That's right. Most likely, let's say in this example that I know they didn't replace the computer, so what would we go by?
Go with the original one.
We have to go by what the car computer system has in it, otherwise we're going to have communication problems. So we have to go with this one regardless of what engine was put in this car, okay? And then from here, generally what I'll do is I'll look for trouble codes. That's what we're going after within the engine management system. From here, we have options of the modules that are on this car we can talk to. That's really what this screen is. We're going to the engine. Automatic with AC, I believe it's an automatic. I drove it in here, but it was yesterday. Yes, automatic. I don't know when the last time I've seen a vehicle without AC. It's like most of them have it now, but be careful with that. K24 key. If I forget at this step and don't put the right key in, I'm going to have a communication problem. So K24. Guys, please stop me if you have questions, okay? There's no reason to rush through this. This is what we're going to be doing next week. I already said yes to about 5 different cars. Okay, and I need your help too, if you guys remember from my little speech from the beginning. I think I said that. Help me. Let's get some work in here. We'll be busy. You know, I told you we'll do some scope waveforms and captures, and I'll show you how to do some of that. But I'd rather be doing scope waveforms, captures, scan data stuff on live vehicles, and you're getting your waveforms at the same time we're, you know, doing the required work. So I look at that as kind of fill, you know, where we're not sitting around doing nothing. You get your own car in here and let's start getting used to doing these measurements. You're going to need them. How do I make this stop showing up, Rob? I can't.
It's having a problem acquiring your certificate.
Maybe I just shut it off. completely. I don't need to go on the internet right now, so I don't know.
Yeah, don't worry about
Okay.
it.
K24 key, I'm good. It actually tells me where this data link connector is. That might not seem very important on most cars, but on some it is absolutely important. They hide some of these data link connectors, like under ashtrays and behind under center consoles and stuff they weren't supposed to be allowed to do, but they did. So.
Go if you really want to do it. Go to I think advanced settings.
Yeah. It's just gonna bother me. It's gonna keep showing up. Okay, our list of where we're going. One of the things I mentioned to you guys for this exam we took is before you danner me to death, use the scan tool and check out the troubleshooter and go to the Vantage Pro program, look at the component test meter, go on Mitchell, do some research, right? Troubleshooter, that's the piece I was talking about. We're not gonna go directly to that because we don't know what's wrong with the car yet. But we need some direction. Scan tool is a direction tool, so codes is where I want to go. And depending on the car, this codes menu can look a lot different. It can be, in this case, temporary codes and permanent codes. And some manufacturers will say history and current, and others will say nothing, just codes. And still others will say, I don't know, just various things. I'll check both. When in doubt or looking for direction, look at both. I believe a temporary code might be.
Go ahead.
I believe a temporary code would be a one-trip code, one that has not matured and set a light, if that makes sense. I think is Honda's temporary codes, and the permanent codes would be the ones that had set the check engine light. So we'll go permanent first. I could be wrong on that too, by the way. So we have no codes to go by. That sucks. No real good direction. Go back. Temporary. Well, that sucks too. I was hoping for some kind of direction. In the field, I would change really what I'm doing right now, and that would be I want to go test drive it. The only test drive that I did with this vehicle so far is I moved it from 10 feet over that way into my classroom. And I had a hard time, every time I gave it gas, the vehicle would stall. And I had to feather the throttle or really just let it idle to kind of run it into here. Those are the symptoms that I noticed. I'm actually surprised that we didn't set injector codes because I had all the injectors unplugged yesterday. Surprising to me that we don't have those. At this point, I think I need to run the vehicle. Again, if I'm field work, I'm test driving it. So to run this, I have to get that fan set up. We're absolutely, this thing stinks. All right, so.
What did I forget?
Thank you, Rob.
You're welcome. I'm happy to help.
No fault codes, a test drive. What would be nice is if I could test drive this vehicle with 15 of you. If we had some way to do that.
I think we can manage this.
We can all fit in.
No, well, that's partly why I started taking the camera with me too, which is kind of cool. I can show you stuff, but I can't do that. And I think I fail my students regularly in this area in stressing the importance of a test drive. And the reason that I forget to do that is because of the situation we're in. There's all of us trying to learn. We can't all learn on that test drive, and I try to duplicate stuff here in the shop that I can show you. The other thing too is I don't want you guys getting stuck out on the road. You give me a call and hey, this car died and I'm 3-4 miles from school. What do you want me to do? I don't know. So.
Well, do you have triple light?
Yeah, right? So I think at this point what I would normally do is I would go to my data and we would look at some fuel trim numbers, stuff that we're familiar with, look at anything that seems to be out of whack. Again, symptoms are critical here. Let me start this. I'm having difficulty here. Well, I never plugged the injectors back in from yesterday. Okay. A quick side note here, guys. A lot of our systems, when you unplug fuel injectors like I did on this, we'd have fuel injector code. So that's maybe a warning to you when we're troubleshooting is maybe someone was in here and playing around before you got the car and you got false injector codes and you're like, oh, I got an injector problem. You get all excited and it has nothing to do with the problem at all. So be aware of that.
That's why my hourly rate increases with this one.
Well, I don't know if you guys can hear that. You guys can hear it, but it's not really idling well. No reason to look at scan data yet. I just want to hear the engine. I want to do a couple of snaps and see if I can duplicate what I felt when I was trying to drive it. I like a vehicle I can duplicate the complaint in a classroom, right? Makes it valuable to look at. So you saw it, the second I gave it any throttle at all, what did it do? Pretty much died. I want to do that again, but I'm hoping it doesn't stall. I just want you to hear that bog. If I would hold that throttle down, it would have stalled, okay? My thoughts initially on that, so should I share that with you or should we use the troubleshooter? So this is where you're gonna be like, hey Danner, and maybe I shouldn't share my thoughts with you on where we should go right now. I have troubleshooter. Yeah. We haven't talked about any info yet. Before we do troubleshooter, let's look at some data. There's a few things you guys would be able to do, and that'd be looking at fuel trim, right? We've done fuel trim so far, so that much we should be able to do. O2 activity and fuel trim. Let's plug it in here and see what it looks like. Huh. It's not there. My O2 heater, milliamps, sensor 1. This is a wideband sensor. When I see O2 S1 MA milliamps, that's telling me this is a wideband, most likely. Air fuel feedback might be my only trim. Let me just want to see what some of these data PIDs look like. I don't know what that means, right? This would be a time, we'll use this example. AF feedback, what is that? I don't know, right? Hit the, we don't want a home tab. Go exit. Troubleshooter, engine, fast track data scan, okay? And what was it called?
AF.
That thing.
Air fuel
Feedback.
Unfortunately, it doesn't give it to me.
There's long-term and
I see that, but I don't need help with those. I know what that is. I wanted to know what that specific data PID meant. This is where I would go. So unfortunately, this is not a good example of that, but does that make sense? That you don't have to jump out of the car and be like, hey Danner. I'll stop using that analogy. You don't have to jump out of the car and, you know, panic about where to go next. Use the tool, push some buttons, figure out what it does. I want to do something before we kill ourselves in here. I'm going to hit the home tab, see if this makes sense. I'm going to change the vehicle. And I'm going OBD direct. And I'm switching my key. I know that OBD direct, it requires the K20 key. And the reason I didn't use generic functions, if you guys remember, it doesn't give me all the modes of OBD2. It only gives me some, and data is not one of them. What I want is my generic data. I should have my fuel trim that we're used to looking at in this area. I do this on vehicles that maybe are a little bit unfamiliar, I'm a little bit unfamiliar with. Say a European model that's using some goofy numbers and I'm not sure what I'm looking at. I'll go out, go under global, hopefully this works, and we can look at short-term, long-term fuel trim. Everybody okay? We're not like, the smell in here. Everybody good with the fan running and the exhaust? Okay. What are we looking for? Which one? This one. Right? Mode 1. Data. I'm not looking for fault codes. Remember, I heard you say freeze frame. Freeze frame data is associated with a fault code. If we don't have any fault codes, freeze frame data isn't going to help us either. There we go. Long-term bank 1, short-term bank 1. Those are some pretty useful numbers. Yeah. This O2 voltage bank 1 sensor 1 at 800 millivolts and the bank 1 sensor 2 at 900 millivolts. I believe, let's be clear, I'm pretty sure this is an air-fuel ratio sensor, a wideband. So it would not be reporting a bank 1 sensor 1 voltage like this. This is a calculated number, I believe. I believe that this is a calculated one. But what is this telling me with this value? And granted, it's a downstream sensor, but both of them are indicating that graph isn't going to help you. It's a very narrow scale. It looks like it's jumping around. Maybe I shouldn't have graphed that. Let me ungraph it. We don't need it. That's a whole different subject. What are these numbers telling me? What type of condition? Okay, let me rephrase that. What type of signal are we showing? A rich signal. We can't make that call yet on condition until we do some other checks, if that makes sense. These sensors could be lying, but let's play the odds here. Let's roll the dice. We have an upstream and a downstream sensor that are both saying rich. So we would have to have two bad sensors here if these are lying to me. And I think that makes me not want to check the O2s for accuracy and believe it for a few reasons. One, this car stinks.
Yeah, the
however, I've seen lean conditions give you a real horrible smelling exhaust. So we got to be careful with that because lean misfires, remember, will put the flame out. So we got to be careful with that. This contradicts the direction that I would want to go. In my initial thought when you guys said stop, don't do it, this contradicts what I was thinking. I think I can share it with you because that's not where we're going. On a bog like that, when I accelerate, my first thought is I want to check the fuel pressure. My first thought is we're starving for fuel. And this contradicts that for me. Yeah. This is saying we have too much fuel. Yeah. That doesn't mean we can't have a lack of fuel pressure too and some other weird thing going on. Something's off here. Something's off. I actually have a next step. This is how quick it will come to you with practice, and I don't think I want to share that one with you. This is where I would want you guys to use the troubleshooter, get some direction. Here's what we have. We have at least some kind of knowledge, right? It bogs, and it looks like it's running rich. Would you agree? Okay, so now we gotta get out of here to go back to our troubleshooter. That troubleshooter is not available to you in global mode because global is all the cars, and the troubleshooter is specific to the car. So we need to get back out of here. We need to change our vehicle, home tab, change the vehicle. I need to put my K24 chip back in here. Everybody good? Hit okay? And then we can re-identify the vehicle, or we go to vehicle history, which is nice. And I'm going to pick that guy, my Honda, and hit activate. And now down here, my Honda should show back up. We're good to go, right? Scan tool. That said K20. I don't want to automatic ID that. Did you see that? That did say K20 right there, didn't it? I don't know why it put me back into that mode. It's going to say K24. That's where it should have put me. Engine, automatic. I've done that already. Okay. And then where did I say we're going? Just picture I'm not here, right? What do you do? We need some direction. I need some help. Right now, Well, maybe not right now because you've only been in here for a week. But after you're with me for a couple of weeks, you're going to have about 50 tests that you think you need to do. And you need some help. You need some help in the form of someone else there to give you some guidance, or you need the help of someone's been there and has some guidance and recorded it for you, right? This is one of them, this troubleshooter. I don't know if this is going to help us or not. It may or may not, but I'm saying I want you to use it. Engine, symptoms, codes. Code list isn't going to help us in this case, but it's pretty cool. If we have a code in this vehicle, you can go in here, and what you need to know is the codes that you'll see at times will be specific to faults that have been seen in the field on this car. I'll give you an example on a Nissan, an older Nissan with an intake air temp sensor fault code. This is how specific the code tips can get. It says, look underneath the air cleaner housing. This is an older throttle body Nissan pickup. This is just one I remember. It says, I have an intake air temp sensor fault code. It says, look underneath the air cleaner housing for a broken wire on the intake air temp sensor. Now, that's not something you would get from the factory, is it? This is field technicians reporting this information. Why was that a common problem? Well, Nissan put the intake air temp sensor on the bottom of the air cleaner housing, and how many times has that thing been lifted on and off in the life of that car? How you know, is that a good money-making day that day using the troubleshooter? This is the kind of stuff we want to look for. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it just gives you the basic overview of that code because there's nothing specific on the car. In other words, you have an EGR flow code and there's nothing necessarily specific to the car, but it will tell you what sets the fault code, that it could be this, 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 or this, and it gives you a list. So that's also nice. Symptoms, wouldn't you agree? Is where we want to go. What are our symptoms? Are they driving, electrical, starting, idling? We could say idling, we could say driving. My thought was it's idling pretty decent. I'm thinking driving first. Let's just see what happens. Engine stalls and restarts, no DTCs.
That sounds about it.
That sounds like us, right? Let's click on that one first. Possible electrical portion of the ignition switch. Problem may not store a DTC, engine may start and run okay warm, but will have symptoms of a flooded engine or hard starting when cold. When engine stalls, look for dash warning lights. Normally lights will be illuminated. So it's given us this, guys, this is not our problem. I know this because I'm accelerating and it's dying and we have rich conditions and negative fuel trim numbers. Hondas are known for ignition switch problems for sure. This would be one where you're driving the vehicle and randomly it would shut down without giving it any throttle at all. I'm sorry, with no matter how much throttle you were giving it, whether light throttle, heavy throttle, whatever, that's what this is describing. Good tip, not us. Did it hesitate during Excel? Listen to it. If that isn't a hesitation on Excel, I don't know what is. Let's see what that says. Slight hesitation is not us, right? Just right from the get-go. May be caused by debris or blockage of oil pickup screen. What?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
It's a restriction may be preventing the Vtec application. Okay, well, this is where a little bit more information you would need to have. When does the Vtec kick in on a Honda? About 4,000 RPM. And would you say 3,500?
Yeah.
It might be 3,500, but it's, how does Bill and I know that? We've done this before. We've been here before. We did some research. We did some homework. These are the things I want from you guys. If you aren't sure about the Vtec application at this step, what do you do as a student? What do I expect from you? You stop where you are, go to Mitchell, and read about the Vtec system on this car. How does it work? How does it operate? This is the stuff that will equip you for the future. What you guys need to think is each time that you're doing this, you're building this database. And this database, you'll find that it's common to use, we're dealing with a Honda, but you'll apply what you learned to this Honda to 10 different car lines. So keep that in mind as we're doing this. Don't be afraid to read. That's not us. Would you agree? We're never hitting that RPM. That's not us. Multiple codes, not us. Vtec codes, not us. Hesitates on Excel. There's another one. We should look at that. Idle screw, misadjusted screw, surging or hesitation on takeoff. That is not us either. That's not going to give us negative fuel trim numbers, and that'll give us an idle problem, but not what we have. And here's the thing with this, I don't care if we don't have any guidance at all in this troubleshooter. The point is you're learning what's in the troubleshooter. And this is what I want you guys to do to help me help you. We're doing 4 cars, 5 cars at the same time, and I need to make sure that you guys aren't feeling like you're sitting around waiting for me all the time. You need to be able to do stuff on your own. This is what I expect from you guys. This is not suggested, this is expected from me. Rob, question? No power, hesitation, lack of power. We need to look at these two too, don't you think? Do that one next. Just looking for guidance, so almost looking for a cheat, if you want to call it.
Cam timing.
Could be us.
Our cam was advanced negative or minus 10.
I didn't see that.
I do.
Did you?
Minus 10 degrees or something like that.
I didn't see that. I would think that we would have a fault code on this vehicle, but not necessarily. I'm not going to totally rely on that. We did have negative trims and rich conditions, and I have seen overly or underly advanced cam timing marks being off cause that, and this thing will not rev, and maybe this is where we go. Cam crank, right? I have a Honda case study where a similar engine with the belt being off 1 or 2 teeth, and when I would the car would not stay running. It would start, run, stall, start, run, and stall. What we'll do is, before we would dig into this, let's watch part of that video, and ultimately it ended up being the timing belt was off. So back of our mind, that's a pretty good tip. Check this out. This is kind of nice. This is built into the tool. This HA051, that's the timing marks. I just want to see what that looks like real quick. Okay, and this is a PDF, so it was an H procedure, right? But it was an Accord. That's not us. All right, without scrolling through this and finding the exact one, what do we have built into the tool? This is not, I'm not online, I'm not on the network. This is part of the tool. It's giving me pictures on this car. This is part of what you get with the troubleshooter. I have this question all the time. What's the difference between the Ethos, that's the one on the top right of that toolbox, the Ethos and the Solus? What's the difference? The Ethos does not have the troubleshooter and does not have bidirectional controls. So that's the difference. This is a powerful tool, this troubleshoot. You know, I wish Snap-on was paying me for saying that. I think you probably can sense the excitement about this troubleshooter because it's from the heart, I promise it is. If I'm in the field and I'm making $70 or $100 a car, and if I have a tip that I can cheat, I look at that as a legitimate cheat, you know, that somebody else has been here and pulled their hair out, and I can save time and put money in my pocket for this kind of information, and this is technicians all over the world that are feeding this thing. That's why I'm excited about it, you know? One more, right? Did we do this one?
Yeah.
One more, that one. So this one's distributor rotor, no power, hesitation. Okay, so what this is talking about, and I've seen this, the rotor, instead of distributing the spark where it needs to go, it will actually burn through the rotor housing and arc to the distributor shaft. When they do that, you'll have a really bad misfire and low power condition, but the difference would be it would give you a type rev up feeling, not a bog stall, and while this is idling normally, not negative trim numbers. Okay, misfires in general, most of them will give you lean conditions, regardless of the fuel that's being pumped into the exhaust and unburned. Lean conditions, not rich conditions. What's this car have? A rich condition. Honestly, from what we've gathered and what we see, I think my first thought was checking cam timing based on the research we did on the troubleshooter. There's one more thing I want to share with you, and you would not know this. and that is the map sensor on this. This is a speed density engine, and my concern with how this revs is that possibly the map sensor signal is not reporting properly. And I told you guys I had a thought, that's where I wanted to go next. I just want to make sure my map's working properly, because if my map's not working properly, this will not rev, and we could actually run very rich at idle if the map is saying we're at wide open throttle all the time. It's a quick check, easy to do. There's more things we can do in this troubleshooter, but I think that gives you guys an idea. When we go to the shop, what are we going to do? Pull codes, get our symptoms, start playing around in the troubleshooter, get some tips, then come ask me. You know, give me a list of things, not just, hey, I have a mass airflow code, what do I do now? Well, if you have a mass airflow code, shouldn't you be going in the code tips? And within the code tips, doesn't it give you some tests to do? I'm going there real quick. There is no mass airflow on this car. Never mind. We won't do that now. I want to see what my map sensor looks like. Data. This is a vacuum sensor. The map reads manifold absolute pressure. Shouldn't call it a vacuum sensor. It's a pressure sensor in the manifold. Right now at idle, the map sensor should be reading vacuum. So find my map. Where is my map? Baro is calculated off the map.
Oh wait, no, there it is.
Right there, 2.3 volts. All right. 2.3 volts on a map sensor on a Honda is not a good number. Atmospheric pressure is, they call these Hondas. I need to actually go to my textbook for a second. You guys stay where you're at. In section 6, nope, in section 8, I pulled up a typical Honda. It's right here. A typical Honda, where's it at? 2007 Honda Civic is around 2.8 volts with no vacuum, okay? That's pretty low for most cars, but Honda map sensors, I believe they set them up that they use the same map sensor on a turbocharged or supercharged engine as they do on a naturally aspirated. That's why they calibrate them lower. We'll get to that. Baro is calculated off the map, 2.79. It's pretty close to my 2.8 volt spec. That's telling me that that map is working properly with the key on, engine off. So let's watch this. 2.3 volts, that's too high. I'm telling you that's too high. I want you guys to understand that we're looking at two extremes on the map sensor. With the car idling, we have full vacuum. We didn't do a vacuum measurement yet, but we have full vacuum with the car idling. And then with the key on, engine off, how much vacuum is in the intake right now? None. So aren't we reading atmospheric pressure right now in the manifold? That's where our Baro number comes from. Right now my map should be pretty close to my Baro. It should really be the same as the Baro. It's still reading 2.3. This is a problem. For me to, I'm hesitating now, because is that possible that in front of all of you that in one shot I made the right call? It was almost like a, do you know what I mean? Like this is classic bad map sensor symptoms that this car has. I could be wrong. We could have some false data. I'm a little bit excited that this is possibly a map sensor problem. I'm trying to think of how much background info do I want to give you on the map sensor right now. We have to test it now before we can condemn it. We almost need to do it. Let me just talk about this data parameter for a second and some things we have to watch for. Sometimes the scan tool can lie to you, okay? I don't expect that that's what we have. I don't have a fault code, surprisingly. The only time we have lying scan data PIDs would be generally we have a fault code, the computer is using a default strategy and throws some number in there, okay? I don't believe that's happening. This map at 2.3 volts. surprised at where this baro number is coming from, because right now theory says key on engine off, the baro should update to the map voltage. There is no separate baro on this car, I think. Now maybe Honda uses a separate baro sensor and that's why that's doing that. Back to the map for a second. Full vacuum and no vacuum, no change. That looks like a map sensor problem, doesn't it? Here's the other thing. If this thing's actually running at 2.3 volts, that is a load condition to the engine computer. What's the engine computer do with a load? It adds more fuel. And so if we add more fuel, if we add more fuel when we don't need it, how does the car run? Rich? How's the car run? It runs rich. And O2s will do what? Flatline rich, upstream, downstream, and fuel trim will do what? Negative. I think we have a map problem.
Another thing with the data you pulled up earlier,
yeah.
The calculated load on the motor was 78%.
Was it? I missed that. That backs up what we're talking about. That
would have come from the map sensor.
Our calculated load, well, it's in part from the map sensor. Yeah, I don't know if it's that calculated load number, to be honest with you, Rob. I'm not totally sure where they're getting it from.
But it could be contributing to the average number.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question the map would be a big player on that load number. And you guys, was that under the generic data you saw 78% load?
I think it was.
Was it in here?
It was under here.
Left side?
It said calculated
I
load?
think it was all the way up to the top. It was one of the top ones.
It was on the left side.
I think,
I think it was in the generic.
is it this maybe? CLV?
No, it's calculated.
It might have been under the generic.
Yeah.
I want to see what that reads with the engine running real quick.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Same number.
78%. Nice. All right. This is cool.
Continue or something.
No, it's just cool. It's cool to be able to teach you a concept live. Do you know? So honestly, what I'll do from this point, because I think we're going to focus on the map, is we need to do a little bit when we come back from lunch. We need to do a little bit of background pressure sensor stuff. We're going to switch inputs, but I don't mind going to the pressure sensors. If I have one I can show you, instead of just talking about it, I think that's where we are, and this will make the learning process so much better. So I'm going to stop there and let you guys take lunch. When you come back, we'll do some preliminary pressure sensor operation, how it works, and then we're going to do some detailed tests on this map sensor. Okay? We're good?
Good.
One other comment to make sure I don't miss it. The reason this is revving like that is this map sensor, as we change airflow and pressures in the manifold, the computer should be reacting with the proper amount of fuel. This map signal, it's never changing. It's staying the same, 2.3 volts all the time. So is the computer seeing those changes? It's not. Now, generally speaking, on the rich side, if I was able to, I should be able to rev this past this hesitation and the car runs pretty decent, because right now we're reading 78% load, but I really might not be able to get there. Let me restate that. If I have a map sensor that's reading wide open throttle all the time, generally the car runs good at wide open throttle, but doesn't run good any other time. In this particular circumstance, I just can't get there. I don't think. Tom, you mentioned this -10 on the spark advance. That's not the cam timing, that's the commanded ignition timing advance.
I believe it was under, it might have been under the generic.
Did it say cam?
It said cam.
It did say
It
cam.
wasn't the spark
Okay.
advance percentage.
Just know that this number right here is within the spark map that would be based on engine load and temperature and speed, and that number is probably off for an idle condition, but remember, to the computer, we're not idling right now. So that number can be off too, and that's an effect, not a cause, if that makes sense. All right, after lunch, pressure sensors, we'll finish this car.